What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. My name is Adam. I am going to be your host here on Hobby Hotline, episode 301. I'm here with Chris from Stale Gum and Brody the Kid. Chris, we'll start with you. How's your week been going? What you been up to? Are we frozen?
We were frozen there for just a moment.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, so
Get
hopefully,
off to a great
hopefully,
start.
right. Hopefully it worked there. So, okay. Sorry. So, Chris, for you, how has your week been going? What have you been up to?
I'm doing just fine. I'm about to. Tomorrow's my birthday.
All right.
I'm gonna be 50. But other than that, I've actually, I'm in the process of transferring most of my uncle's house in New Jersey, which is where I kind of kept it when I moved. And I'm kind of rediscovering all of my old cards from the late 90s. And I'll just say I didn't. A lot of them have come out bricked. So yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, let's get some happy birthdays in the chat here for Chris. Celebrating his 21st birthday. Can you believe that? So
yeah, my 29th anniversary of that.
So. Very, very exciting.
And yes, I will be at the Union game tonight. So
nice. That's exciting. Yeah. If you see Chris or you hit him up on Twitter or whatever, make sure to wish him happy birthday. Brody, same question to you. How's your week been going? What have you been up to? Are you still in high school? Like, are you almost done with school and stuff too?
Yeah, I just finished school this week. I'm going into my junior year, so
all right. Cool.
Happy early birthday to Chris too. I've been watching college baseball. It's been fun. College World Series. Nice. Georgia's in it. Illinois. So it's been fun watching college baseball.
Nice. Yeah. Georgia has a player, Condon, I think his name is, first baseman. Yeah, he's I'm pretty sure he's playing. So I live on Cape Cod, and there's something called the Cape Cod Baseball League, which is like one of the main like premier college sport or baseball leagues basically and during the summer. And he's coming to play for the team that plays in my town. So I'm pretty excited. Yeah, he's been absolutely on a tear. It's college baseball, one of those times of the year that, it feels like it comes and goes every so quickly. And then same with the, Little League World Series probably coming up too. But as we're in this time of the year, this also means that we have the NBA Finals. And that is the topic we actually are going to start off today's episode with, because now we have the finals are locked between my Boston Celtics. So I think probably everybody knows who I will be rooting for in this series, and the Dallas Mavericks. So this should be a pretty exciting series. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to give any predictions necessarily because I'm obviously rooting for the Celtics. So my prediction would be the Celtics. Chris, I'll start with you here. What do you think of the finals so far? Or what do you think of the finals and how do you think it's going to, or if it will affect cards really at all, I think?
Well, from a hobby perspective, you have Jason Tatum is the big star for Boston. And with Dallas, you have Luka and you have Kyrie Irving, who's kind of his career has kind of been reborn in Dallas. He's no longer really a head case anymore. And he's kind of been that good number 2 guy for Luka. So I'm kind of excited for this series. I think it'll go at least 6. I would think even 7. But I think Boston, and I say this as a 76ers fan. I still can't believe we traded up to get Markelle Fultz the year. Ugh. But I think if I have Boston in 7, so.
Brody, same with you. What do you think of the finals? What do you, kind of interesting matchup, probably one of Boston's toughest matchups. We'll see, but what are your thoughts overall?
I mean, I think from a hobby perspective, this is good either way, no matter who wins. Tatum and Luka, back-to-back years drafted. So I think hobby perspective, it's definitely good. I think Celtics in 6 or 7. I think they're better built, but I think Luka is definitely the best player. But I think Tatum Finals MVP is my prediction. But yeah, should be a good series to watch.
Yeah. Now, I think one of the interesting things that's happened within sports cards over the past few years is, players like Luka and players like Tatum, their prices seem to already involve MVPs and championships. Because if you look at, Tatum maybe a little bit differently, but Luka, at one point, he was like one of the hottest players in the hobby. And I would argue that he probably was before, during the 2020, 2021 year. Stuff was fluctuating, going up, going down. It was pretty crazy. But I think a lot for Luka, championships and MVPs, like I was saying, was already baked into some of his prices. So Chris, I'll ask you, since I think you've probably been in the hobby a little bit longer than I have. Back before maybe the 2018 is really when I got back in. So back maybe early 2010s, what was really affecting sports card prices? Like, if you have a perspective on that, because like I said, I've only seen really kind of I would call it a reactionary market since I've been in sports cards. So like, was it the same way before the 2020, 2021 boom that we saw, Chris?
A lot of that had to do with performance and perceived future performance. So if you were drafted to a team that was expected to go on a playoff run or even end in a finals run, a lot of that value was baked into it. In the case of Luka Doncic, I think it's important to understand that during COVID, this guy basically carried the basketball hobby during COVID.
Right.
So I think a lot of, regardless of the results of this series, I think a lot of his value is pretty much baked in right now. So
yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the weird thing. Like I said, it seems like the hobby has just agreed that Luka would be. At one point, they were just like, yeah, Luka's going to win like 4 or 5 championships. And it's like, well, that's, you look at the players who have won more than one. It's really a slim list. And Luka this is the farthest. And I don't even know if Luka had played in the conference finals before this year. Like,
no.
This is a big step up for Luka. Tatum and Brown are, they've been here before. They've been in the finals before and they lost. So, obviously as a Celtics fan, I'm rooting for them. But Brody, I'll ask you this question. Do you think that either player, or I guess you could put Brown in that conversation because he's part of kind of the modern sports cards, like 2017 for him. I don't know, 2016, and then Tatum was 2017, then Luka's 2018. Do you think that any of these players are going to see a spike in their card prices because of the finals?
Potentially, but like we saw Anthony Edwards, his cards were going crazy, and he just got to the conference finals and they lost in 5, and his cards were going absolutely bonkers just because he got to the conference finals and he had a couple really good games. So they could see a potential rise, but they'd have to have some really good games and like really maybe like go on a sweep or like win in 5 or something to see an absolute super increase.
Right. And I want to give a shout out to Rex over at the sports card shop. Got us up on the big TVs there. Mike also said he got us up on the all 89 TVs at the Costco. Shout out to Mike for that. That's obviously being a little hyperbolic there. Hopefully at least one of the Costco TVs has us up there. You never really know. We're making it big time here at the Costco. Somebody said Luka definitely gets a bump in value once he gets a ring. Same thing happened with Giannis. There's another level once players get a ring. And I think that's an interesting conversation. I think like the ring conversation for sports cards, does it, Chris, I'll ask you this question. Does having a ring matter within sports cards? I think everybody within the media would say one way, but I think within cards, do you think card values really are tied to winning championships?
How many rings do Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani have?
That's a great question.
Zero.
I think
hasn't
it's
hurt
zero.
their value.
No. Right.
I mean, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
If these guys eventually win a championship. But, if you're recognized as one of the 5 or 10 best players in the game right now, I mean, that's got to do something for your card value. So,
right. Yeah, that makes sense. I also want to ask, so MD Sports Cards said, ask Peyton Manning if rings matter in sports cards. Peyton Manning, one of the winningest quarterbacks in NFL history. Somehow you could still find his cards relatively cheap. I mean, relatively, all things considered within football. Now, so I got 2 other questions for you. So Brody, I'll ask you. So we'll move past the finals a little bit here. Let's just say in 2 weeks, whichever team has won, hopefully it's the Celtics, but whatever. Let's just say 2 weeks from now, is there any advice you have for anybody who's looking to buy any cards right now? Or are you telling people are you telling people to wait potentially till the off season? Kind of what's maybe your advice for the finals and then maybe potentially after the finals as well?
I wouldn't buy anybody that's in the finals. I'd wait until closer to the season. I mean, after somebody's been to the finals and especially a team that wins and they've had a great finals and they just won, especially if it's their first ring. I mean, don't go and buy an expensive Luka card after he just won his first ring. I mean, wait a little bit till his market's cooled off.
Right.
Good
totally.
Advice.
And something important to remember. We also have the Olympics coming up, and for basketball this summer, which I think Tatum, I don't know if Brown is on the team, but I know Tatum's on the team. So we're going to be seeing more of these players this offseason than we have previously through other off seasons. I think one of the cool cards for LeBron actually that I bought a while back was there was a Fleer 2004 USA card that was really cool. So maybe we'll see some USA cards potentially coming out this summer. I don't know I guess it would still be Panini would have that license, maybe. I don't know. Chris, I'll ask you.
Topps has the U.S. Olympic license.
So yeah,
do they have the USA basket? I don't know who has that license. It's a good question.
That is a good question. Anybody in the chat know which the chat may or may not know, but anybody in the chat know whether Topps or Panini is going to be making basketball for the USA cards, because that's going to be a very interesting set. I mean, especially with it's probably LeBron's last Olympics, last time with Team USA potentially as well. I don't know Olympics for sure, because the next Olympics obviously isn't for another 4 years, and then I don't know what other there was the FIBA championship last summer. I think that the World Cup, yeah, which some players don't really take super seriously. So the Olympics, it seems like they've really got the A team out there for the Olympics this year. So, and just remember, so like I said, we have more time with these players, which look, I hope there's not more injuries. That's what I'll say, because it seems for players that are playing in the finals, which I think is Kyrie on that team. I'm not 100% sure. But Luka will probably be playing for whichever country he played, Slovakia or does anyone know off the top of their head for Luka? Let's just look it up real quick, because I know that if Yugoslavia was still a country, that I saw a crazy statistic that Luka and Jokic would be playing on the same team if that was the same Slovenia. Yep. So he'll be playing probably for that team in the NBA Finals. So I guess we'll move on from this topic. I mean, I want to give everybody a shout out in the chat as well. Make sure you comment where Slovenia. Yep, thank you. Make sure you leave a comment where everybody's watching the show. I love checking out to see how nationwide we're becoming basically here on Hobby Hotline. Episode 303, like I said, make sure you follow the stream, all that kind of good stuff if you want to support the show. Also, we have a slot on Hobby Palooza coming up on the 22nd of June, I believe. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. Hobby Palooza, tons of fun. We got someone from Philadelphia. We got Oklahoma. Very exciting. The next topic we are going to move on to is another hobby superstar that kind of made his rise throughout the hobby through COVID. And that is, I did stop sharing. That is going to be Jason Dominguez, and his 1 of 1 was pulled. And some of you may remember that actually the original story was that someone pulled the 1 of 1 at a game. So I don't know what that pack would have been. I don't know if that was part of the story. I don't know if either of you guys remember what story it was, but he pulled the card at a game, and then it comes back, and it came back a PSA 10, which is, I mean, pretty impressive. You can tell that PSA kind of does the thing with the centering. So I think theirs is like 60-40. I'm pretty sure, where they're pretty lenient on the centering. I don't think I would have given this one a 10 based on the centering being super obvious, and based on the, I don't know, based on the.
If PSA had a 9.5 grade, it would probably get a 9.5. But
right. I agree, because the card does look pretty clean. It's just that centering that's off. So, Chris, I'll kick to you. What are your thoughts on the card? Thoughts on the story in general? I mean, I think it's a pretty cool
think
story.
This was at a Phillies home game earlier in the year. And I think it was pulled out of a hanger box, I want to say. So the fact that it was pulled at and this person didn't have like penny sleeves or a top loader to put it in.
Right. That's the funny
part. I guess they just threw it back in the box, and somehow this got a PSA 10. I don't. If I were at a game and I buy a pack of cards and I pull a valuable card like this, there's no way it's coming home as a 10. That to me, the fact that it came back as a 10 without any proper cardboard protection, that's the part that amazes me.
Yeah, this is it's almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm skit, where it's like the guy's into sports cards and he pulled this card that I mean, I don't know how much it'll sell for. I mean, it's probably, Dominguez has been hurt, so like he still is kind of in that prospecting mode for sure, but like somebody who doesn't, if he's with a group of people who have no idea about anything about sports cards, and he pulls this card and he's like, I have to go, guys, I got to get out of here. And they're just like, well, why? It's like, I have this thing that's probably worth like $10,000 in my hand right now. I got to get out of here. Like, I would love to have seen that part of the story and seen like a behind the scenes footage of like how that guy got out. Like, for me, I'd just be holding it in my hand, be like, don't get near me, don't touch me, don't get near me. Yeah. Brody, I same kind of question to you. What were your kind of initial thoughts when you saw the 10 and just the story itself overall?
I mean, I think it's pretty awesome that they pulled this at a game, because I've seen, like, it seems like more cards have been at games recently, which I think is awesome. But I mean, the way they were holding this card, I can't believe those corners didn't have more problems with it, because it just seemed like their hands were kind of over the corners. But
look at that upper left corner with the thumb.
Kind of surprised me, to be honest. But I mean, awesome story. I mean, I always bring sleeves and top loaders in case I find any cards at games, so I'm usually always ready just in case. But pretty cool story, pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And then somebody said, will the Dominguez 1 of 1 sell higher than 89 Costco TVs and Mike's hot dog? Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess we'll see there.
Was that the $1.50 Costco hot dog that comes with the drink?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So I mean, I think cards at game. I almost think that card stores at games, I think, would be, if they're selling cards, they should have top loaders and stuff. I mean, this is probably a 1 in a billion chance that this card was to be pulled at that moment at the game. Again, I forget who I was listening to. I was listening to someone else's podcast, and they were saying that, like, oh no, you know what it might have been? It might have been Chris Carlin from PSA was on someone's show. Maybe it might have been the DA show, where he was like, yeah, I'm actually surprised a lot of cards would just get a PSA 10 in general. And this is something that I've thought for a little bit too. It's like, the scaling of PSA 10s. I think it needs to change. I don't think they can change it within 1 year or go retroactively, but I think maybe next year's set or the start of 1 year, I do think they need to make a little bit of an adjustment when it comes to what cards are grading a PSA 10 or what cards, like how they're just being graded in general. And so, Chris, I'll ask you this. Like, so, this card gets a PSA 10. Do you think the PSA 10, do you think it's gotten stale almost? Like, no pun intended, but like, do you think it's gotten like to a point where it's like, sure, you want the PSA 10, but it's like you're expecting to get a PSA 10, which is, I don't think that's what it should be.
I mean, well, first of all, credit to the card companies for making cards that, a generation ago, you weren't really guaranteed to get mint cards out of a pack. You probably would get a few off-center cards, maybe some wrong backs, some gum stains and wax stain cards. And it seems like every card that you get would grade a minimum of a 9 or a 9.5 these days. So,
right.
I think with that said, since so many cards are coming out of the pack as 9s or better, then the allure of a 10 really doesn't have what a 10 isn't what it used to be,
Yeah, it's a little different.
Now, as far as PSA maybe changing their scale, now you're getting into the trouble that Beckett did last year when they announced that they were going to change their scale and have, I think it was 3 different versions of a 10. You have the regular 10, the black label 10, and then kind of almost like a 9 3/4, but we're going to call it a 10.
Right.
I think if I remember when PSA added half grades about a decade and a half ago. I noticed that they didn't include a 9.5 grade. And I think that was for this reason, is that collectors would prefer their cards be a 10 instead of it being a 9.5. Even if it is a kind of an imperfect 10 and should have been a 9.5. Yeah.
I mean, I think too here, like, I think there's always a debate I've seen about grading 1-of-1s and if you should do it, if it's worth it. I don't know. I don't know if I fully have a stance one way or the other. But Brody, I'll ask you, like, do you think grading 1-of-1s, do you think it's something where, do you think it's worth it? Because like, if you get a 10, obviously that's great. But if you get a 9, you're probably breaking even in terms of what's going to happen to the price. 8 or below, that's where things get a little bit sketchy, I think, in terms of what could happen to pricing. So do you think grading 1-of-1s cards like this is worth the risk of what could happen to the price if you're looking to sell it?
I mean, if it's a card like this, I think it's probably worth it, just because, I mean, there's probably somebody that would pay a lot for somebody like Dominguez, but I mean, if it's more of a random 1-of-1, then probably not.
Right. Yeah. I think, like you said, I think it really, I think, goes on case by case basis. I think some cards you should probably try and grade them. Some of them, I don't know what you would really do. I mean, I don't know, like, do you put it in like some sort, what's the mag case, or I don't know exactly what you do here. Now, Chris, I'll ask you this question with Jason Dominguez, for example. I think he's had an interesting ride throughout the hobby here, because he was the guy during COVID that everyone wanted coming out of Bowman. They basically created a new product for him, like with the first, the Bowman first, but then it was like the first edition Bowman that came out. That was the first year that they had done that, or at least first year in a while. And then, he makes his debut last year in the majors. He plays pretty well, but then he has to get Tommy John surgery and he's going to be out for a while. And now, I mean, luckily for him, he's not a pitcher, so his recovery is probably a little bit shorter. So he hasn't made his debut yet. Now, I'm going to ask you this question, Chris. Do you have advice for anybody who is holding Dominguez and looking to sell? Is it like a now time to sell, or would you wait until he makes his debut again? Or do you think like because he already made his debut, the juice that you would get from that moment in his career is already gone?
This guy to me has serious Ruben Rivera vibes. Do y'all remember Ruben Rivera? He was a big Yankee prospect about 25, 30 years ago.
The name does
and he
sound
never
familiar, but I
quite
can't.
panned out. He he's best known for trying to steal Derek Jeter's glove from the locker room. But yeah, I remember his first Bowmans were like $20 bills right out of the pack. And keep in mind, this was 1994 where they didn't have inserts or anything. So I would say if you have this card, sell it. Get what you can for it, because I think the market on this, and again, I mean, who knows with prospects anymore? What you're going to get from these guys?
Right.
I would say sell while you can and cash out.
Right. Yeah, so. I think that makes sense, and I would say, I always think that the buying and selling of prospects is what you should do to get the cards that you don't want to sell. I think there are tons of different ways to get those funds, in my opinion, however you're trying to sell. But I think the long-term holding of prospecting, I think has really run its course within the hobby. Like, I think, again, I keep referencing COVID times, but like 2018, 2019, 2020, I think people were much more looking into long-term prospecting, which may or may not have been the right move potentially. So Brody, I'll ask you this question. We're going to move on to a topic that's very similar to this one, actually, but obviously a little bit different. So Brody, I'll ask you, like, if you are, when you're buying and selling cards, like, are you like, how much are you prospecting and looking into like the short-term hold, or are you mainly buying cards for the long term, or do you really just kind of buy cards and you really don't buy and sell? I mean, I'm interested in what your kind of strategy is there.
I buy some cards, but it's mainly PC stuff. And if I'm buying anything that's more expensive, it's really guys that I know have done stuff like Ohtani. Like, I know Ohtani looks like a superstar, or Trout. Like, he was at least a superstar, at least at the time, like a couple of years ago. We know Trout was a superstar. Maybe now he might, he might never stuff as much. He might not play much longer, but or guys in the NBA like Tatum, he's a superstar. I mean, when I'm trading, I'm looking for guys like Ohtani or guys for my PC. If I'm prospecting, it's White Sox. It's guys for my PC. I'm not going out of my way for random prospects like Dominguez. It's just not what I do.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of similar. I mean, I wish I could. The buying and selling of prospects seems like a lot of fun. But I don't have the time really to spend diving into all the data, especially when, I mean, for me, this isn't a full-time business. So like for people who are full-time business people within the hobby, it's probably something that they have to do, this type of prospecting for the buying and selling. But yeah, so the next topic, like I said, is very similar to this one. Not exactly the same, but something that I've seen floating around on Twitter is apparently some people have noticed this. I've noticed it, but I've kind of noticed it once other people started talking about it, was Topps in their marketing has started to really push, I guess you could maybe call it a narrative, maybe not, but they've started to push sort of the retail cards, that people are pulling these crazy cards out of retail. And I'm wondering, Chris, I'll start with you. Is this something that you've seen, or is this something that you think is just, it's maybe just a coincidence that Topps is doing this? They're not really trying to push any type of narrative necessarily. It's just something that's happening, and Topps is kind of talking about it more. And the fact that now that we're seeing it, it's more of like when you buy a car and you see everyone else has the same car as you. Do you think it's more like that, or do you think Topps is actually doing something here with their marketing, trying to push retail stuff?
Have you seen the price of hobby blacks lately? I mean, How much is a hobby box? Not the jumbo box, but just the regular hobby box of Bowman baseball this year. It's like $275, $300. Yeah. Why would you pay for $300 for that when you can get 3 or 4 blaster boxes at what, $25, $30, and basically get the same amount of cards? It's just, to me, it's just a better deal to buy retail. And you're still, and you're probably not, you're going to miss out on some of the hobby exclusive stuff like the orange wave, fuchsia, die cut nuclear refractor numbered to 125 or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Who cares? It's just another parallel. I mean, if you're just interested in, building your set, building your inserts, and, if you hit on an autograph or a low number refractor, which you can still get in retail, hey, that's a great deal. And it also would not surprise me, though, with Topps pushing retail that, they themselves are one of the big retailers, Fanatics. So probably that going on too. So
right. Yeah. And Brody, kind of same question to you. Where do you stand on well, not stand, I don't know. You don't have to make a stand, but what do you think in general of like just maybe Topps is trying to push retail versus hobby, I suppose?
I mean, like you said, like Chris said, hobby is really expensive. I mean, especially products like Bowman and Topps Chrome. I mean, Topps Chrome Platinum is like $140, I think, at some places. So we could give a blaster for $30-$35. I mean, I got a blaster of Topps Chrome Platinum and I got 2 numbered cards. It was a fun rip. I enjoyed it. So, I mean, I like retail.
I mean, a blaster is basically what, 1/3 of a hobby box. So if you buy 3 blasters at what, $30 each, that's $90. And you're getting basically the same cards as a $140 hobby box.
Right. Yeah.
Why
you're missing out. You're missing out on whatever the guaranteed stuff that's coming out of the hobby boxes are. But I mean, nowadays it's like on Panini, and this is Topps versus Panini, but like in Panini stuff, they're doing, their big thing is that they're on average, like they're saying on average there's 2 autographs per box, and people are seeing that they're really some people are getting 1, some people are getting none. It's like I don't know, the marketing around hobby boxes and the guaranteed stuff you get out of hobby boxes, I don't know if I love it. I think that if you're going to be trying to sell hobby, it should have a guarantee that you're going to get autographs. Like there has to be sort of an incentive. And I think that's what I think the big difference is, that hobby used to be like, it used to be fairly reasonably priced. Like, I mean, I remember buying a Series 2, and this is way back in 2018 or 2019, whatever the Fernando Tatis Jr. first Topps card was. I think it was Series 2 in 2019, I'm pretty sure. And it was like a $60 or $70 box that I bought. Nowadays, you're looking at blasters and they're like $80, $90, $100 for Series 1, Series 2. It's like there's just not, the incentive of it isn't worth it, unfortunately. And I think, breakers in general, they're the ones sort of that, potentially maybe driving up some of these prices for hobby boxes. Yeah. And like you said, you could go and find 3 blasters of some product at, Walmart, Target, wherever you're going, and get almost the same amount of cards. Like I said, sure, you're missing out on certain guaranteed things you get in hobby boxes, but just in general, like, I don't even know if the incentive to get an autograph out of hobby boxes nowadays is really even worth it, because like you look at the number of just non-rookie autographs that they're putting in there, and the fact that, like, I don't remember which prospect it was, but it was some prospect that posted a stack of like 10,000 cards that he was signing. And it's like, there's that many cards from autographs from one player. It really is pretty insane. And no, not to, this is a 1-of-1 autograph, but how many people are nowadays, at least, like I obviously know Mo Vaughn, but it's like, Brody, maybe I'll ask you, do you even know Mo Vaughn? Like, are you aware of Mo Vaughn really? Like, cause he's sort of an older player. So it's like, I'm wondering, do you think, at what point do they need to be careful with what older players they're putting in these products? Like, so I guess my question to you is like, do you know Mo Vaughn? Like, is this a player that you would be interested in to pull one of his autographs?
I mean, I know who Mo Vaughn is, but I guess like if I pulled his base autograph, I wouldn't be like jumping out of my chair. I mean, if I pull a superfractor, I'd be pretty excited. If anybody, a superfractor is pretty cool, but I wouldn't be like jumping out of my chair necessarily. Oh, hey, Mo Vaughn autograph, but I mean, it's still pretty cool.
Right. And then Rex had some good comments here. So both Topps and Panini are now selling blasters and megas directly to direct hobby account hobby shop. Sorry. And then in Panini cases, they are hobby exclusive blasters and megas. So, I don't know. Chris, I'll ask you this question, and I think it's kind of it's sort of vague in a way. It's like, do you think that there should be hobby and retail? Do you think that there should be a difference between the two products? I understand why there is, but like, do you even think that should be do you think it should be that way? Like, do you think that everything should all be together and then you just have smaller, different size boxes and then there's no difference between hobby and retail. It's just the box size and the number of cards you get in a box is different, but there's no difference from wherever you're buying it, I suppose. Because also, just real quick, sorry, because like now people can buy retail at hobby shops, so it's like what's even the difference? It's like, that's so. Do you think that is? Do you think they should do it? Do you think that they should make the merge, or do you think that they should leave it how they have it?
Well, the reason why we have separate retail and separate hobby is that, a lot of these mass market retail outlets like Walmart and Target, they have so much buying power that they can basically impose on the hobby that, if you want our cards in our store, we want something that you can't get anywhere else. And, for years, decades, really, products have had retail only inserts and hobby only inserts as well. So I have no problem with that. But if the retail / hobby only insert is just another parallel, like the orange wave fuchsia nuke die cut refractor numbered to 75 or whatever, is that really is it really special for that specific product type? For me, it's not. I mean, and by the way, one other thing, Mo Vaughn was a pretty good player, but he needs to give his MVP award in '95 to Albert Bell because he had a better season.
Yeah. So, obviously, as a Red Sox guy, I maybe disagree. Any MVPs, any awards, keep them coming. As a
50 homers and 50 doubles in one season. Nobody's ever done that before or since. Bell should have won that year. So sorry.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I remember about Mo Vaughn is he had this like crazy. Oh shoot! I hit my mic. He had this like crazy like thing that he did with his bat. I mean, that was cool. Obviously, I mean, and again, as a Red Sox fan, I'm a little bit biased here. But Brody, so I'll ask you the same question, which actually kind of stems from Rex here talking about some of the mass market stuff being available in hobby shops is a good move because it gives it allows people to buy stuff at a cheaper price point. So at what point, because I think that's sort of the point here. It's like, at what point is like when you're buying retail versus hobby, should there not even be a difference? Because like, if hobby shops are selling retail retail boxes, what's really the point? So, I mean, for you, do you think that there should be a difference, or do you think what they're doing now is fine? And even the hobby shops, but hobby shops buying retail blasters is also, part of the ecosystem, I suppose.
I mean, I think it's fine because I think, well, like Rex said, I mean, I think it's good for the market because they can sell like they could sell blasters to kids, and then like the people that want to chase after the case sets can buy hobby and jumbo or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the hobby and jumbos are just so expensive. It's hard to really deep dive. But it's like Chris said, like if you want the oranges and whatever else is in the hobby, I mean, go buy a hobby. But if you just want to collect the sets and have a chance at the autos and stuff like that, buy retail. Or if you're a kid and you don't have that much money, buy retail as well. And now, Adam, I'm going to make you a little jealous here because in my blaster box, I pulled this nice Brian Bale gold auto.
Oh, nice.
Baby Pedro.
Nice. Yeah, he's been, I mean, I don't want to get started on the Red Sox and how much they piss me off just because they're pretty good at getting prospects through the system, but like they've really basically, I'm actually not even going to get into it because I'll just rant for the rest of the show about how the Red Sox piss me off. But yeah, Bajo, I do like him. Like I said, good prospects. Maybe the rest of the team, they kind of are just the ownership mailing it in a little bit when it comes to trying to get some of these players.
At least your team's not 15-43. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That is true. Also, let's see if we got any stuff in the chat here. We got people talking about Mo Vaughn. If Mo Vaughn walked into my bedroom, I'd put, oh, Jesus. I should pre-read some of these before I put them up on the screen. Are you jumping out of your chair? Big dude. Yeah. Mo Vaughn was massive. Let's see. Yeah. Exciting. I mean, my thoughts on it, I think that, like, I agree with what both of you guys said. It's like you should have a cheaper option for people to get these cards where they don't have to spend, you're not shilling out $200 because realistically, like $200, like the amount of cards you could, if you were to buy singles with $200, which I know that people are probably sick of hearing that type of advice. It's like, yeah, obviously when you're buying singles, you're getting the card exactly what you want. But $200, $300 for a blaster box, or I mean, not a blaster, a hobby box is out of the price range for a lot of people. And I do wonder, what percentage, which I would imagine it's probably pretty high, of breakers are actually the ones buying a lot of these boxes versus just normal people, not breakers at all. Like, I'd imagine it's probably skewed in the breaker direction, which could be causing some of the pricing, I would say. But, I don't know. It's that's all speculation. There's no hard data that I really have there that I can point to, I suppose. But so we are actually going to move on to it'll probably be the last topic. It might be the last topic. We might have one after this, but an interesting article that has been or an interesting piece of news that's kind of been floating around a lot of, I guess, what you could call mainstream sports media. So Perfect Game and Fanatics signed a partnership, but the partnership may not be very good. And Chris, you were explaining this to me before the show, and I think you have a pretty good rundown on what exactly is happening here. So I'll let you have the floor and just kind of give us a little bit of a spark noted version of what exactly is going on here.
Okay, so Perfect Game. I think for people that have collected Bowman cards over the last 10, 15, 20 years have come across this Perfect Game outfit, and they're a scouting service. And what they do is that if you're a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid who aspires to play baseball at the next level, either to get drafted or to get a college scholarship, Perfect Game brings together these players for a nominal fee. And they organize these all-star games and showcases for major league scouts and college coaches. And they're probably best known for their all-star game that they have at the end of the year, where they invite, I think it's 50 or 60 of the best players. It used to be called the Aflac game, and now it's sponsored by somebody else. And while I think in the late 2000s and early 2010s, Topps actually made a card set for the Aflac game and had the players sign their cards. And then when they finally signed a pro contract, they would put these cards into Bowman packs. I think about a decade ago, Leaf took over the Perfect Game license, but Topps has been pretty much doing the same thing with something called the Under Armour game, which is from a competing service called what are they called? Baseball Factory. Same thing. Okay. So what this deal does now is that it brings back those rights, the Perfect Game rights, into the Fanatics, Topps, Bowman family. Now, what Perfect Game has been doing over the last couple of years is that they've hidden a little clause into their player release that basically forces these kids to sign away their NIL rights to Perfect Game, and it's in perpetuity. And as a condition for participating in some of these more high-profile all-star games that Perfect Game has been throwing, they have the players sign like hundreds of items, like baseballs, photographs, cards, and stickers. Now, what this agreement does with Fanatics is now, because Perfect Game owns your rights, your NIL rights, they can now go to Fanatics. So let's say you were 16, 17 years old and you signed up with Perfect Game. You wound up getting your college scholarship, and now you excel in college baseball, so much so that you're projected to be a high-round draft pick. Because you've signed away your NIL rights to Perfect Game is now going to turn around and sell those rights to Fanatics, who can now produce a Bowman U branded card of you without you being compensated for. And because you signed hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of autograph stickers while you were in Perfect Game can now transfer those to Fanatics, so that now your first Bowman Chrome autograph card could be in a Bowman U product with a sticker autograph on it, and you would not be compensated for it. I think this deal stinks to high heaven, and I think it's exploitative. It could be illegal, and a lot of big-time agents, like the Scott Borises of the world, are advising high school players not to sign with Perfect Game because of this.
Yeah. I mean, it really, there's two kind of my two thoughts here. It seems almost like the opposite of other stuff that Fanatics has tried to do, like signing players and trying to give them a bit more equity when it comes to what they're paying players. It seems like Fanatics has done a pretty good job at trying to get players more involved in the industry. And I'm hoping that means that they're paying the players a little bit more, because I think the marketing that's done around a lot of sports card products is very autograph heavy. So like if a player is, signing however many autographs, I don't know in my opinion, I think they probably should be getting a little bit more money for all the autographs that they're signing. And this is just doing basically the opposite. This is like, we're going to get you, we're going to try and get you, but we're get you as one of our athletes, but like, you're not going to, which I feel like there has to be something here that's missing, where it's like Fanatics is going to come out and say that there's a second part of this deal where, I don't know, if they make it, they get a different type of NIL deal. I don't know exactly. And the other thing is that I think this is also something that we've seen recently. Like Panini did this with a couple different like high school athletes, where they signed them, like one of the top recruited quarterbacks that hasn't even said that he's signing anywhere with a college team. They signed him. So they're almost trying to, I don't know, maybe one up each other in terms of who can sign the players the earliest to their contracts.
Yeah.
Because I think nowadays we're seeing players be much more financially savvy around some of these autograph deals that they're signing. And this, like you said, doesn't seem like something that's doesn't seem like something that makes a lot of sense for the industry. Brody, as somebody who is a little bit younger in high school, is this something that do you know anybody that is playing in these types of games or is going to any of these types of showcases? Like, is this something that for you, like, is this something that you know of people that are like that? They're like, no, I'm not going to do this. Or what are kind of your overall thoughts on the deal? I guess.
I mean, as a travel baseball player, a lot of people's goals eventually are to get to Perfect Game showcases because it is a big deal to be at a Perfect Game showcase down the road to try to get to play college baseball. But zero compensation, like, no, you can't do that. Like, enough said.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think too, it's like the showcase of the Perfect Game is a way for players to get scouted and stuff. So it's like if you're now if you're adding financial implications to a player getting into this showcase, I don't know if that's the move. Like I don't think that's a good idea because you're affecting. And I understand it's a business move, it's a money move. Sometimes you got to make moves that are maybe a little bit harder than others, but it's like if you like Perfect Game has always been one of these, like if you look at a lot of players that are in the MLB, like they played in these Perfect Game showcases before they went to college or before they played in the MLB. But it really is a way that players are going to get their name out there and important, which I mean, I think just in general, baseball, it's like such a convoluted system and it's so hard to get to the pros that this is just, you're adding a step that's making it more complicated and making it so that players will have less of an opportunity to play in something like this. So yeah, Chris, I mean, is this something that you think they're going to revert or what do you think the aftermath of this kind of this deal is going to be essentially?
First of all, I think that this does eventually get thrown out by the courts. I mean, this reeks of exploitation. But the thing is that, 16, 17-year-old kids can't legally sign these contracts. It's the parents that do. And some parents, they're thrilled. Their kid's going to be on a baseball card. And
they don't
maybe
even know.
They don't understand that, they're going to be on a baseball card, but they could also be on a baseball card and be compensated for their name, image, and likeness too.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is a way for Fanatics to, I think, save some money too, because when these guys get drafted, right, and let's say you're trying to assemble a Bowman draft autograph checklist, other than your signing bonus, you're still not getting paid a whole lot of money as a minor league baseball player. So signing maybe like 5,000 autographs for tops, that's a quick way to make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Well, now if Fanatics already has your autograph on these stickers that you signed 5, 6, 7 years ago when you were in a Perfect Game showcase, that's another source of income that you're not going to get as a player. So
right.
Yeah, the ramifications of this, especially in this new era of NIL, it's a brave new world that we're just beginning to understand hobby wise. So
right, yeah, and I mean, I think like I was saying before, like players in the leagues now that are signing any type of autograph deals, they're definitely signing higher deals than they were before. So I mean, if you're Fanatics, I guess it's, unfortunately, it's a pretty ruthless move. I mean, Fanatics has been pretty much not on record, but all the moves that they've made have been like business oriented. They're going to make money somehow. Like they're going to figure it out. So getting these players in the door as early as possible, they may not, especially if like you're saying, like they're the agents for these players might just be their parents. Like they might just not even realize that they might even not realize what they're signing. Cause down the road, these players, if they're good enough to play in this, granted, I'm sure it's not a super high percentage of these players that are kind of going on, but it's like all they need is one player. Like really for Fanatics, all they need is for one player in all of it to really sign this type of contract and then get to some sort of place in their career where they would be in Bowman, and then they don't have to sign them. Like if they're popular, if they're good enough, and if they play well enough that they could be in Bowman, their autographs are probably going to be pretty expensive. And at that point, they probably have some sort of actual real agent, not because I think I was reading in one of these articles, they said that because of their ages, technically they can't have agents. They can have agents advising them, but they can't technically have the agents themselves. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can see why they're doing it. I don't necessarily love it. So, you know, Brody, I'll kick it to you for one last kind of conversation piece, and then we'll wrap up. We're getting close to the top of the hour here. You know, for Fanatics and Panini too, do you think it's really a good idea for them to be signing these players at such a young age to any of these like exclusive contracts? Or do you think like there has to be someone that steps in? And I know that there's no real entity that's kind of controlling the sports card industry, but like that says like they have to be X age before they can sign any type of deal with Fanatics. Like, do you think that has to happen? Or because like, I mean, from your perspective, since you're, you know, younger and you're in high school, like, do you think that there should be an age of where they have to wait to get these NIL deals? Or it's like, you know, it's a free for all. You can do whatever you want.
I mean, like you said, I see why they're doing it. They want to try to get exclusives with these players as soon as possible. But I mean, it would be nice if it's like once you're drafted or once you sign. But I just don't think it can happen. I mean, Fanatics is a huge company. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from doing this as of now.
Right. Yeah, I think, because I think we're still sort of in the early stages of NIL. And I don't think that we've really seen, I think we've seen controversies and issues. And like now, I mean, even, you know, there's a huge change within the NCAA that they're going to be allowed to pay players. So, I mean, we're really seeing a huge shift in not even just in sports business and not even just in sports cards, but just, sports business. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. We're not just in sports cards, but in sports business in general. The whole landscape is really shifting because of, you know, now the NCAA, after hundreds and hundreds of years, they're allowing teams to pay players, which I think, you know, they should have probably been looking at this. I think this was bound to happen eventually, especially once the NIL deals came around and then the transfer portal and all these types of things. I think the players should be looking out for the players, because the NCAA it's very clear that the NCAA doesn't really care or doesn't really look out for the players in general. So the fact that they're going to be paying these players now, I think it's a good thing. And I think it will depend on, you know, I think the NCAA has maybe some shady business stuff going on. So we'll see how it ends up panning out. But overall, I think it's a good thing for the players. We'll see if it ends up being a good thing for the NCAA and the leagues in general. But that's pretty much all we got for today's show. I'll throw it around the horn one more time. We'll get your last thoughts, Chris. Last thoughts for today's show. Got anything to promote? Anything going on? Like, what do you want to say to the audience before we head out here?
Dortmund versus Real Madrid. That's
in
the Champions League final. And also Columbus Crew versus Pachuca tonight in the CONCACAF Champions League final. I'm rooting for Columbus. Bring it home for MLS. Other than that, I got nothing else going on. Check out Baseball Cardpedia. Check out Hobby News Daily. And check out Stale Gum on whatever Elon's calling it this week.
Brody, same question to you. What you got going on? Let the audience know.
We're watching Illinois, Kentucky. It's kind of Hail Mary. Kentucky's number 2 ranked team. And then I started travel baseball, so this might be my last episode for a while. So we'll see if I can hop on soon, but we'll see. Might have a week off.
Soon we'll have to do we'll have to sign you to like an NIL contract or something. Get you like a hobby hotline NIL contract. Yeah, and I want to say thank you to everybody that left comments in the chat. We had a big time chat day today. I saw a lot of comments in there. Really appreciate that. Shout out to everybody watching, no matter where you are. Unless you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, for the next couple weeks, I'll be pretty furiously rooting for the Celtics. Maybe we'll see how long that series goes. But my message always going into the end of the show here is just, there's going to be questions people have. Just be kind to people coming into the hobby. We are still sort of seeing people come in and out of the hobby. My message is always, these people are new. They were in a position that we were in at one point. So if they have questions, be nice, answer the questions for them, help them out. Because you never know, one day they might be in the same boat as you, where they're helping somebody out because you helped them out. Do all of these things. Everybody, thank you all for listening or watching or any all that kind of stuff. And we will see everybody in the next episode.
All right. Keep rocking.